I was going to ask you to sit down. You got ahead of me. Well, very good evening. It's great to be here, isn't it? Yes? Hey, come on. Hey. We're going to be looking at Psalm 73 together this evening. Staying upright in an upside down world. Now, I'm not going to read it through. We're going to pick bits of it out as we go through. But I want to ask as we start, when you look at the world, what do you see? The sand and the sea, the hills and the mountains, the seagulls and the ships, yes. You look closer, what do you see? A world full of people. And as you look closer still, what do you see there? Many things. Many aspirations, many hopes, many fears. But let me tell you something I see. Do you see it with me? I see many good people suffering terribly. And I see bad people seeming to get away with it. If you've ever seen the same thing as me, I want to tell you that you're not alone. I want to tell you about a man who saw the same thing. In fact, he wrote a song about it. It's right here in the Bible. His name is Asaph. Psalm 73 is his song. And I want to begin where he does. He says, surely God is good to Israel. That's God's people. To those who are pure in heart. Surely God is good to those who turn to him. That's verse 1, but from here on he's struggling because so often it doesn't seem like it. It's an upside down world. Bad people get rewarded so often for their wickedness. Those who don't care about God so often seem to get away with it. He says in the third verse this, he says, for I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. People push in front. They cheat in exams. They really do. They fiddle their tax returns and they get away with it. Those who own up seem to get into more trouble. Those that don't so often don't. People do what they want with whoever they like, whatever the circumstances, and they're still okay. Isn't it so often the greedy people who so often have the easy life? The Bible's so very up to date here. As Asaph continues his song, he says, they have no struggles. Their bodies are healthy and strong. I have a friend in Delhi, North India. There you can step from a slum into a palace in just a few paces. When I was last there, I passed a dead man in the road on my way to the grandest hotel I have ever been in. What has selfish greed bought these people? An easy life. So it seems. It's an upside down world. Then, of course, there are some who are bullies and get away with it. There's the Kim Jong-uns of this world and the Assads out there. Or perhaps closer to home, there's the bullies in the office or in the classroom. And despite their pride, don't so many seem to love them and follow them. Asaph found the same to be true, where he says in verse 10, therefore their people turn to them and drink up waters in abundance. Do you know, in my class, when I was a child at school, there was a real bully. He always seemed to get away with it. And get this, everyone wanted to be his friend. It's an upside down world. That's the first thing that Asaph is singing about here. But secondly, he makes clear in that upside down world, it's hard to stay upright. It's hard to stay upright. Asaph believes God's good to his people, but he's struggling. Let me go back to the very beginning. He says, surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost slipped. I'd nearly lost my foothold. You see, as he looks out on this world, he's got so many questions. Is God really good? There are so many circumstances, says Asaph, where it appears as if God doesn't really care. And so he continues, verse 13, surely in vain I have kept my heart pure. Can you hear him? He's saying, look, I've seemed to give my whole life to trying to live the right way, in a way that acknowledges and honours the living God, and yet all around me, I'm surrounded by people who couldn't care less. And at this moment, Lord, it seems to be going better for them than it is for me. I've wasted my time. And so he's been tempted to think, well, why not join in with them? I mean, he's really struggling. By verse 16, he says this, when I tried to understand all this, it deeply troubled me. Have you ever felt like this? Do you know, it can be so very hard to go against the flow when everybody around you seems to be getting away with it. As a science teacher, just a few years ago, I arrived at one school to find that every member of my department, all 21 of them, were involved with the Year 11 GCSE students in basically walking them through their coursework, telling them what to write. The whole year group had inflated scores, and everyone got away with it. And as one teacher arriving amongst 21, how hard it was to stand against the flow. But then again, why would I bother? I mean, if God is letting these things go, why shouldn't I do the same? The Bible understands our struggle. Asaph understands your struggle and mine, but God doesn't leave it there. Listen to this. Verse 16, he says, but when I tried to understand all this, it troubled me deeply until I entered the sanctuary of God. Then I understood their final destiny. It is hard to stay upright until you turn to God and allow him to show you things from his perspective. You see, once he'd approached God, he was able to see things as they really are. If we were to imagine our life as travelling on a great river, I mean, in one sense, standing by the sea here, it's easy to imagine it. Imagine an enormous river with all those in the world around us travelling on it, some swimming, some in ships, some sailing, others on paddle boards, and so on. Everyone's there. Everyone's going with the flow. All except those who become convinced they must resist it and are trying to cling to just one or two rocks that are placed there. But with so many going past them all the time doing the opposite and seeming so happy to do so, how hard it must have been imagining like that to carry on clinging to try and stand against such a flow. And so we find Asaph, here he is, as it were, clinging to a rock and looking at them. He was tempted to get a boat of his own and join them in the party until... well, in the case of this psalm, he describes himself as going into the sanctuary of God, going into the place where he was reminded of the teachings of God through his word, through the scriptures. And as he did so, he recalled something. He said, then I understood their final destiny. It's as if in that river, God lifts him up and gives him the bird's eye view. And he sees then that God does care about wickedness. There may be times now where it seems to go completely overlooked. But from that perspective, what did he see? Well, if we stick with that image of a river for the moment, he saw around the bends where it all ends in a great crashing waterfall. Just listen to him. He says, till I entered the sanctuary of God, and then I understood their final destiny. Surely, he says, you placed them on slippery ground. You cast them down to ruin. How suddenly are they destroyed, completely swept away by terrors. They're like a dream when one awakes. When you arise, Lord, you will despise them as fantasies. God will punish the wicked in the end. Do you know, this is great news. There is a day of ultimate justice when people hurt us and get away with it. when thousands in our world starve because of the selfish actions of others. People may get away with it today, but they won't forever. In perfect righteousness and justice, God will hold those who do wrong to account. He has set a day when he will judge the world in righteousness through the man he has appointed, Jesus Christ. And he has given proof of this by raising him from the dead. You see, as Asaph saw this, as he saw things finally again from the bird's eye view, as he saw the waterfall of God and recognized that God will bring to account everyone for what they have done, he starts to look inward at that point and realize that he had a big problem. He goes on, he says, when my heart was grieved and my spirit embittered, I was senseless and ignorant. I was a brute beast before you, O God. When he challenged God with those questions and said, Lord, look at this situation in my life. You don't care. Look at these people who couldn't care less about you and following you and respecting you, living how they like, oppressing the poor, trampling on the needy. God, you don't care, was the cry of his heart. And now from his bird's eye view, as he recognizes just how deeply God cares, he sees the wickedness in his own heart. And in so many ways, aren't we the same as we cry out to God? It's not fair. How come you've allowed them that, or him this? And we turn our backs on the God who made us. And he's reminding us even this evening as we gather together that that waterfall stands before us all. Jesus is coming back. How will we avoid it? Well, this is the other bit of the great news. Not only does God care about wickedness, God also cares for his people. He has provided a rock to cling to in the river of life that will never let you down. This rock is Jesus. And that man, the Son of God, the one who walked in your shoes and mine, is the one who came here with the express purpose of placing himself under the waterfall that you and I deserve. And as he holds out his hands to you and I, he is offering to hold on to you as you cling to him. As Asaph looked forward to this day, he could say, verse 23, yet I'm always with you. You hold me by your right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will take me into glory. As by faith he clung to the rock of God's promises, he now saw that through those promises, it was God himself who was holding him. God would bring him through. And so he declares in his closing verses, whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. God's everything to him now. Having seen things as they really are from that bird's eye perspective, having seen things from the inside, how he has been towards God, and recognizing the promises of God to hold to himself all who cling to him. He can rejoice. And yet as we consider him and his words to us, we have all the more. Because we not only have the promises of God like a rock to us, we have one who brings those promises to us in person through Jesus Christ, who comes to you and I and calls us to follow him. And as we heed his call, he reassures us that as we reach out for him, the one who came into these waters, who bore the waterfall, came into the water so he could be with you and me in it. And so by his Spirit he holds us. By his Spirit he dwells in our hearts. By his Spirit he assures us that what he suffered on the cross that we deserved was full and complete. So that you and I can not only know complete forgiveness, but by the mighty power of his Spirit, we have the shielding that we need at every moment until we gloriously see his face. What wonderful news. And so in this upside down world, he holds out a promise to us, but he also lays before us a choice. Asaph ends like this: those who are far from you will perish. You destroy all who are unfaithful to you. But as for me, it is good to be near God. I have made the sovereign Lord my refuge. I will tell of all your deeds. In this upside down world, let me leave you a simple question. Are you making the Lord your refuge? And as you do so, are you giving your life to tell the world of his glorious deeds? This is our great hope. And I want to encourage you to stand with me and sing. I was going to say raise the roof, but let's stand and sing as the musicians come and join me. We're going to sing a song, My Hope is Built on Nothing Less Than Jesus' Blood and Righteousness. Our very great hope. Thank you.